Hello, my name is Jen Loki, and it is September 20th, 2022. Let's talk about the integumentary system. All right, it is made of the cutaneous layer and the subcutaneous layer, and has accessory structures thrown in there. Before I get too in depth, I plan to be either a physical therapist or a PA, but I really think that my career path is taking me toward athletes and training athletes. I'm a runner myself, and there were several parts of this chapter that would pertain to running, such as callus formation, showing which parts of the feet you are under more mechanical stress due to the way that you run, as well as blisters and things like that on the superficial side of things. I just had an example of that this weekend. I ran a marathon and a giant chunk of my heel skin came off in one giant whole piece. And so I'm going to explain why that is here in a second. So those are my career aspirations. All right, the epidermis is the most superficial layer. It is made of 5 different layers of 4 or 5 rather, depending on whether the skin is thick or thin, of squamous epithelial cells, tightly knit together. The deepest layer of the epidermis is the stratum basal, and this is where large stem cells called basal cells are in one cell layer thick, and through mitotic growth and division end up producing keratinocytes, which is the most abundant cell in the epidermis. Keratinocytes produce keratin. Keratin helps protect the epidermis from drying out and kind of maintains its integrity. This stratum spinosum, which is the next one, is where the tonofibrils are created and sort of connect these keratinocytes at desmosome sites on the cells. And the fact that they are so tightly bound together with these tonofibrils is why a giant chunk of my heel fell off, and it didn't slough off individual cell wise. So the next layer is the stratum granulosum, where parts of the cell membrane, granules of lipids, come off and sort of formulate a protective lipid-rich layer that lubricates. And this is also the last skin layer that has live cells that have nuclei. The next one is stratum lucidum. This is only in the soles of your feet or the palms of your hand, where there is the most mechanical stress, where you have thick skin. And it's a clear layer of dead cells, basically. Then you have the stratum corneum, which is the outermost layer, multiple cells thick. And again, depending on the amount of mechanical stress, you might have more or less. It might be harder or more keratinized, or softer if it's not used as much. So as a climber and a runner, I have calluses everywhere, and that it was interesting to learn about how those form. All right, so that's the epidermis. Then deep to that, we have the dermis. So the dermis is then subdivided into 2 layers, the papillary layer, which is superficial, to the reticular layer. The papillary layer is made of loose connective tissue, and the reticular layer is made of dense, irregular connective tissue. There are accessory structures that are found in these layers, like sweat glands. There are 2 different kinds. I found this very interesting because I have 2 teenage boys in the house. So apocrine glands, my God, are these boys smelly? I mean, I swear they shower, but it's bad. So that is the type that occurs mostly in your groin and your armpits, nipples, and that milky sort of odoriferous fluid is produced, also where pheromones maybe are let out. And then you have the eccrine sweat glands all over the place. But apocrine, I was like, yep, that's my house. Sweat glands are one kind of accessory structure. Sebaceous glands that produce sebum, an oily substance that has an antimicrobial protection element to it. They can either be dumped into the hair follicles and coat the hair, or they can communicate directly with the surface of the epidermis itself and dump them into sebaceous follicles with no hair. Then there are hairs, which are also accessory structures, and then nails as well. And learned about the ways that the integumentary system, oh shoot, I'm out of time. Okay.